Hello and welcome to Fly With Your Shadow, the podcast all about music, mental health and illness, and the mess that the COVID pandemic has made of all of it. My name's Jeff Robson, and this show comes to you from my home in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This show is named after a song by and hugely inspired by singer-songwriter John Bottomley. This past week marked the 10th anniversary of his tragic suicide death. I feel dedicated to help keep his music and spirit alive and hopefully to spread awareness of mental health and illness issues. Together, we can do our part to normalize these conversations and reduce the fear and stigma surrounding mental illnesses. With any luck at all, we might be able to reach someone before suicide seems like the only option. There is help available, and life will get better if you get the right help. There are links to a lot of great resources on the show's website, flywithyourshadow.com. If you're struggling or have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch with me at flywithyourshadow@gmail.com. When I started planning for the production and release of this show, today's guest was right at the top of the list of people that I hoped to land for the show. She's a big inspiration and role model for her advocacy work, and I'm also a big fan of her wonderful music.
I'm Amelia Curran. I'm from St. John's, Newfoundland. I am a singer, songwriter, filmmaker, mental health care advocate.
Over the course of 5 albums made with the backing of the influential Six Shooter Records label, Amelia Curran's name became one that was known and respected across the country and beyond Canada's borders. She's won just about every music award there is in Canada, including a Juno, SOCAN Award, Canadian Folk Music Awards, and multiple awards on Canada's East Coast, where she makes her home. In 2014, Amelia spearheaded a project called This Video, which is a star-studded song and video that presents some startling facts about depression and suicide, but it ends with hope, optimism, and a call to action. She's made other powerful documentary films since then, and you can find a few of them along with her music and much more information at ameliacurran.com. This video eventually led Amelia to form an organization called It's Mental. That's a grassroots community organization that focuses on the funding and sharing of knowledge on mental health realities and first aid mental health training that will help safeguard our communities, families, and friends. Please check out itsmental.ca to find out more about the organization. To find training in mental health first aid, visit mhfa.ca. All of those links and more can be found at flywithyourshadow.com. Even though there's a lot of serious and heavy material to cover, I had a whole lot of fun chatting with Amelia, and I know you'll enjoy listening. As usual, the sound quality isn't perfect, but I think you'll get the message loud and clear.
I know you say you've got no regrets, but I call time. Every secret calls a number, and this one's mine.
All right, let's start musically, because I think most people, especially out here, probably know you most for your music, but it's been a while. I think your last record was, Watershed? I think it was 4 years ago or something. And
Was it 4 years ago? Yes.
Yeah, 2017, I think.
4 years ago.
And I don't know when the last time you were in Winnipeg was, but we haven't seen you for a while. So things have been fairly quiet on the music scene as far as we know. Is that still something that you're doing a lot of?
I wouldn't say I'm doing a lot of much. I am still making music. I have some grand plans. I have one grand plan, and it's a gooder, and I'm really excited about it, but it's still going to be a while. So yeah, I mean, if my career was still what it has been, I would have made another record 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. Or 1 year, I don't know. Every 2 or 3 years would be your album cycle. So Watershed has done what it's going to do, and now it's sort of gone by way of old catalog. And but I switched it up a bit. I've had I left Six Shooter Records, not for any juicy, gossipy reason. It was just sort of, I reached the end of that road. I reached the end of that cycle. I did enough of the tour it, write it, record it, tour it, write it, record it. I got tired of it. So I've moved on to other things. My one grand plan, which I've told no one about. Should I tell you?
I would love that, of course.
Should this be the moment? I'm going to do it. I am working on a show. If we hopefully will return to the kind of life where we get to have shows, and so I'm writing songs about systemic discrimination and victims of systemic discrimination. I know that sounds really feel good and warm and fuzzy, but it is sort of my sweet spot through all the mental health advocacy work and through the filmmaking and all of this stuff. I've landed in a place where I want to remember the purpose of folk music. And through history, the purpose of the folk song is to stand up for the folks. And so I'm going to try and do that with a lot of consultation with a lot of community groups here in St. John's. I'm going to write the songs, I'm going to do the interviews, and I hope that it's something that we can take on the road as a presentation for social justice and systemic change.
So is it a play? Is it like...
No, it's a music show and probably an album too. I'd like there to be a film component because it's all facets of my life. Recently, somebody dropped the phrase mid-career artist on me, and I had a nervous breakdown of sorts. And I don't know what to do with that, but I was like, okay, fair enough. So before I'm old guard and have to shove off and make room, this is the project that means the most to me that I am going to be working on for the next several years, probably.
Get that out of the way before you have to go on the obligatory casino greatest hits tour, I guess is what they're saying.
Yeah. Then I'll get that Juno Song Circle gig and they'll be like, wow, we thought you died.
That sounds like an amazing project, and it's certainly linked to a lot of the things that you've been doing over your past few records, and I guess perhaps maybe even all of them. You've always had kind of a social justice or some kind of meaning there that's outside of kind of, you're not just writing love songs and hey baby songs, right? Like you've always kind of had a bit of a message and a bit of a purpose to your music, I think.
Can't help it. It's so my father was an activist, and my sister was a youth activist, and we were just always a fairly leftist household. So it's like it's this default place for me, and I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of love for the Hey Baby songs. Don't get me wrong, but it's in terms of. I've often been curious about legacy and people's legacy. And if I'm considering as a mid-career artist, begrudging mid-career artist, if I'm talking about what has my purpose been as a musician, and I do think it's a social justice place.
And do you think that makes it, has that made it easier or harder, do you think, for you to write songs when there's got to be a message, or when there's got to be... Or does there have to be, or does it just come out?
I don't think there has to be a message. I think that the things that I have either chosen or have been somehow creatively forced to write about have always been those sorts of things, have always been this kind of, please understand me, please understand your neighbor, please try and have empathy kind of plays. Making people weepy is my sweet spot as much as I try not to. It's just what always happens. And, if I can use my powers for good and not for evil, that would be good. But the thing about systemic discrimination is that there's a lot I can write about as a woman. There's a lot I can write about from a mental illness standpoint. But I also have a very deep understanding of what it means to be an ally. So that means that this is not a project I'm doing alone. There's a lot of outreach going on. I can say one of the worst things I've ever seen is watching a white guy sing a song about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And that's a shame because the guy cared enough to want to write the song, and that's great. But in understanding what it is to be an ally, you really have to, there's a line to walk. There's a very helpful line to walk. And when you stray to the other side of it, you stop listening. And so I want to help. I want to help. You know, you put that on the gravestone too. She wanted to help. Like, what are you going to do? But I do want to help. I want to help elevate, and I want to help amplify. And there's a way that I can do that without having to speak for somebody. So it's a very strict about it, nothing about us without us kind of way of doing it. And then when you boil it all down to being like, well, here I am alone in my house trying to be inspired to write a good folk song that I've also decided has to fulfill all this other complex social stuff. That's why it's going to take me a while.
So as a white guy, I'm still struggling with this white guy thing. How do I be an ally, or how do I talk about those things without it seeming insincere?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You educate and be educated. I mean, I can't believe it. I recognize that it's kind of I'm not going to say it's a hard time, but it's an interesting time to be a white guy, right? You know, so I think that maybe there should be more talk about being an effective ally, but we need to learn that from the people we want to be allies to. You can't just jump in and be like, I'm an ally, I'm here to help. That's all well and good, but you know, it's in terms of listening, understanding the language, understanding, you know, it's I look to LGBTQ2S plus culture quite a lot, because that community seems to be so on point with it and often first with things. And the binary and non-binary language is fairly new to a lot of people, but so easily adopted. And all you have to do is listen, learn, and adopt, right? And that's it. It's that simple. Don't assume that somebody requires your help. But when someone says, maybe put your he, him tag on your email, that's very simple. And it's very important because it makes people say, why is that there? Right? That's it. It's just normalizing things, right? And you don't have to be LGBTQ and you don't have to be Indigenous to help normalize things and to help access visibility for you know, people who are suffering systemically.
Yeah, because
blah blah blah. Yeah, here I am to hear ya.
No. It's given me a lot to think about, because I want to help. I want to be that guy, and guys especially. Like we want to fix things. We want to come in. We want to help. So we just always assume like barging in and saying, "Hey, I'm here to help." It's going to help, but
that's fine. And you have to be like, it's okay to include myself too. So I thought, you know, I'm a straight woman, you know, with female identifiers. And I was like, oh, there's no room for me in this, but there's room for me to say, I'm a straight woman who identifies as female. That's okay. Because then it's okay. So that's me, over to you. You know, it's okay for, you know, why are we requiring people who identify as different to do all the self-identifying? Even though I'm in a majority, it's harmless for me to use a similar identity language, to just be like, yeah, name tags are okay. Everybody's got name tags. Don't worry about it.
I never really thought about that because it kind of normalizes that and like opens the door for other people to say who they are, right? Yeah.
Add the he, him. And then, you know what I assumed? Sorry. Add the he, him, they, or what, you know, whatever it is that you prefer, because how are you going to know if you don't ask? You can't expect people to be psychic either. Put it on the end of your email. There's also tags that you can put there that says, why is this here? And if someone is curious and wants to click it and doesn't want to ask, then it can bring you to sites that will explain very simply why these gender identifiers are there, gender pronoun identifiers. Oof. It's a lot. Language is a lot, and it's often changing, and it matters a lot. And the thing is that we have to allow ourselves and each other to ask questions that may be stupid questions. I want to say there are no stupid questions. There may be wrong questions, like, when people are like, well, which bathroom do you use? I'm like, maybe that's not quite the wrong question. Maybe it's the bathroom's fault, but it's okay to ask a few wrong questions before you get to the right one, right? So we have to allow other people to do that and allow ourselves to do that. And hopefully you get the right answer. And that to me is being an effective ally, is allowing yourself to take part. Not just say, oh, that's not for me, so I'm going to close my eyes and close my ears, and because that's not me. It's okay to look and listen and learn. And in fact, I think it's essential.
When you start doing a show like that, or when you start talking about these things, how do you... I feel like there's kind of a line between entertainer and educator. I'm generally an educator. And I feel like, in your line of work, you're probably a large part entertainer. How do you make a show that's still entertaining, but still educates people and doesn't bore them, but still gets a message across? And
I don't know. I'm working on it. I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, I could talk about this sort of stuff all day long, but if I want this to be engaging and if I want people to listen, and the thing is, I'm talking about this, which I care about a lot, but I also care about music. I want it to be good. I want it to be catchy. I want to, I'd like to make some money. I want all that stuff too. I don't know if I'm asking too much, but I'm working hard for it. So I don't know. I mean, you want it to be engaging. I think that art is important when we see ourselves in it. And I think that that's what's important about representation too. And I think that a lot of underrepresented people are working so hard for that because their art is so important. And the audiences I'm getting a little lost in it. What I mean to say is, it's important when we see ourselves in it, and we pay attention when we see ourselves in it. So I'm mostly just talking about myself, coming to these realizations, trying to do a good job, trying to be empathetic, recognizing that it's really hard and it's really complex, and then finding some forgiveness in that. And I think that there's a way forward. And I'm making music because politics kind of grosses me out, and it is where I belong. I try to do a lot of other things, but I keep coming back to music. So, well,
you're certainly good at it, so I'm glad you keep coming back to it. I've certainly enjoyed the music for a long time, and I know a lot of people have as well. So, how's the pandemic been for you? Has it should you have been out doing a lot of shows this past year, and did they go away, or were you kind of busy doing these other things anyway?
I was kind of busy anyway. I don't know if it's Murphy's Law or whatever, or fabulous timing. I don't know if it's fabulous timing or terrible timing, but I had, sort of parted ways with my industry partners and representation. And I was like, okay, I think I'll make some documentaries. I think I'll take a breather. I think I'll deal with my industry trauma and step away from the industry for a while. And then I had a baby and a whole bunch, which I got very defensive about because people were like, oh, she took time off to have a baby. And I'm like, no, it was the opposite. Anyway. And then this pandemic has happened. So I was not going to be touring anyway. Lucky me, I guess. But it's hard. I can't be running out and making documentaries during this either. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought, but there's, I was up for a sort of switching gears anyway. To have disappeared among the pandemic, like so many other artists, I do still feel that I'm a part of the community, even though I was sort of stepping to the side a bit. So.
I am very empathetic, I think, to the plight of performers, just because I've talked to so many of them over the years, and on my radio show, and having people play here at the house and stuff. And I know how hard it can be. What you talk about, this industry trauma, like what was so difficult about it for you, without getting too uncomfortable with it or anything? But why did you feel like you just had enough of that?
I worked with some really, really wonderful people, and I worked with a lot of women, which I like. And it's everybody's doing a great job, but there's a little bit of a different focus. And I was never terribly pleased being the focus. So when your job is to sell, when your job is to brand it and design it and fabricate it and sell it and all that sort of stuff, and then all that had my name on it, I would fight against it. I would disagree. I would, and just all these kinds of struggles. And I felt like I was being made to do things that I didn't want to do, which is true, but I didn't know how to suggest otherwise. So it's nobody's fault. Nobody was like pinning me down and saying, too bad, you got to. I didn't know how to make it otherwise. So I still don't know. The way that I've tried to remedy that for myself is by not being on a label and not having a branding person and not having a publicist, and to just sort of retreat and take a breather. And, the songs that I'm proud of, the songs that I regret a little bit. And it was never a one-woman show, but I learned a lot that I'm able to use now, that I am in control.
I'm struggling to understand this. You're a performer. You know your name's going to be on the thing. Do you wish you had a band name to hide behind, or what are we talking about here? Like, I assume you wanted to do this. You wanted to make music.
I did want to do it, and I had a really great time. But the thing is, when they're like, the radio's never going to play that song, they're going to play this song. And I go, oh, really? That song? Everybody does this. Yeah, but they'll play that song if it's 30 seconds shorter and it has another electric guitar and maybe less tuba. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll do that. It doesn't mean that. The thing is that it takes a village. You can't just be, I know best all the time, because the people I worked with are good at their jobs for a reason. They made good decisions. They made good suggestions. If I was uncomfortable with those suggestions, I either should have said so, talked it through, and instead I just sort of got a little bitter. But, that this is in the past, you understand. But, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself, really. And I didn't know how to say, that's not what I want. And the hilarious thing is, it's not like I have a ton of money and a ton of it's not like I'm this huge billboard artist either. I'm talking about what is CBC Radio 3 going to put on their thing? Oh, poor me. But, but when you're putting all this stuff out there, it's your name. And when they're working on this great tour for you and you're going to be out there and you're not going to get a day off for a long time, it boils down to just this one person. And I was uncomfortable. I didn't like it.
So you talked about moving into doing documentaries and stuff like that. Have you always been a filmmaker, or how did you get interested in that kind of work? Because you've done some great things.
Thanks. It still feels new because there's this interruptive pandemic thing where nothing happened. And so I still feel like a rookie. But I said to someone just yesterday, I didn't start making films until about 6 years ago. And then I was like, wait, 6 years? Anyway, I don't know. It started with the, I called it This Video. I don't know what it's really called, but the one with all the people holding signs of the mental health stats was the first thing that I was really in charge of in a video format. And I loved the realization of that idea so much. I thought I'd just elbow my way in and call myself a filmmaker and hope that nothing went wrong. That's how I do things.
So was it a desire to make that film yourself, or was it just like, we don't want to pay somebody to do it, I figure I can do it, and then you have fun doing it?
I don't know. It was just, you find yourself having the same conversation over and over and over and over and over. You're like, well, everybody else must be having this conversation too. Can we stop having this now and just get it addressed already? And it was Jenny Wright, who at the time was the head of the Status of Women Council here in St. John's. And I met with her to be part of that video. And she said, well, I hope you're comfortable being an advocate, because that's what they're going to call you right away. And she was right. And the rest is politics.
Is that a bad thing to be called an advocate?
No, it's great, but I love it. But it's a lot. There's a lot of advocacy comes with confidence, and that's something I've had to work on my whole life. And it comes and it goes, and I'm sort of along for the ride. And when you're an advocate, you're expected to know what you're talking about. And the thing that makes me nervous about advocacy is that people don't choose their advocates. Advocates are like me. We just kind of pop up, or we do something, or we're good at PR, and there you go. You got an advocate. What if it's not the advocate you want? What if it's some spotlight hungry straight weirdo? You don't choose your advocates. So for that reason, I feel very sensitive about not doing any harm,
Talk to me a bit about this song, or whatever you call it. Where did that come from? Because obviously you've had a lot of themes of mental health and stuff in your music, and you've talked about it before. But that for me was the time where you just became overtly like spokesperson for this cause. Where did that come from?
That the song, that everything's going to be all right on repeat.
Like doing that, and then stepping in front of it like that.
You know what it is? It's asking people if they want to take part in it, and watching people trip up over themselves, wanting so desperately to be a part of something, and to help inspire change, and to help tell people that they're going to be okay, even though things are not okay. I don't know. I had an idea. I asked people if they wanted to take part, and it was so well received. That flow of confidence went up. I was like, okay, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong about this being important. It really matters to all these people, and it matters to me. So here we go. So I don't know. I don't know. It's very tricky, and it's an ever moving thing. It's always changing.
Can you talk at all about your personal reasons for getting into this, or why this was so important to you to do?
Yeah, I don't know where to begin. I've had my own things, but it's not, I have no standout, crazy pants event that it's almost like folk music, is that this is a natural home for me. This is a natural home for my skills, for my, empathy, for the things that I care about. I'm good at this. I can help with this systemic change, and with people who are, it's funny, I used to say people who are sitting alone in a room, but now of course everybody's been sitting alone in a room for a year, but for people who were sitting alone in a room 20 years prior to that, I was like, I can do this. I can help. I regret when it gets very political, and it often does. And I've sat on a number of committees, and I've, been frustrated by that. Politics sort of plays on your vanity, and everybody's got a little bit of vanity. But when they're like, oh, Ms. Curran, we'd like you to sit on this very important committee with blah, 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 and you'll be reporting directly to the minister of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, I'm very important, and I want to do that. And then committees are hard. They're a necessary, I don't want to say evil, but they're a necessary super boring cog.
Part of what I'm trying to do with this show is just have people share their kind of personal experiences with mental illness and stuff like that. The reason for me doing this show, there's a few of them. I've had some terrible mental illness issues in my life. It's amazing that I'm here today. I feel blessed every day that I didn't actually kill myself, one of the 1,000 times that I wished that I could have. I wish I had known at the time that more people were having those kind of troubles than just me, because you feel so isolated when it's happening. And then the other thing that really got me going is there are some musician heroes of mine who died by suicide, and it just took the wind right out of me. Like, how can these people, and they're almost always guys, how can these guys who seem so talented and so successful be going through the same awful shit that nerdy, lonely Jeff Robson was going through? You know, so that's kind of why I'm here, and I just feel like it's important for us to share those kind of stories. You know,
I think so. Yeah, I'm really glad that you didn't die.
Me too. Yeah.
I mean, I certainly had my own struggles to a point where I identify very well, and I understand. And people who do understand immediately. You never have to explain it, right? You know, you'll notice you say depression or anxiety, or even you don't have one of those words. You just start to talk about it a little, and you'll find people nodding really quickly. People understand immediately. That's something that is really in our corner when we're talking about mental illness and addiction and things like that, and especially within the music community and the music industry. And, you know, people understand immediately. You don't need to explain to someone what addiction is if they understand what it does to one's life. Oh, I'm getting lost again because I'm too excited. I want to tell you because, you know, it's been so long, I almost forgot. Not that I forget, but it's not as on the tip of my tongue as it used to be, is that there was a man who died here in St. John's, who died by suicide, and his parents put it in his obituary that he died by his own hand. And this was such a new thing. It was novel, and the courage to say so, and all these sort of things that sometimes people are tired of being told they're courageous, but it is there. And so his parents they were interviewed, they were on the radio, they were on television, they were talking about it. And I remember, and these are friends of mine, and I remember him saying, "Thank God for slum landlords," which is so weird, but there are so many people in varying stages of spiraling or of recovering, where the opportunities to take part in an effective community or society are so little that I understand what he meant. Thank God for slum landlords, you know? And that just made me sad and tired, and it made me realize that mental illness is fatal. Oh my gosh. I was like, he died from mental illness. He didn't, you know, this wasn't complicating factors due to something. He died from a mental illness that went either untreated or undertreated. When you talk about isolation, I mean, community is part of the cure for this, I think. And I've seen so many people die by suicide, and it does keep happening. And I lost a friend just a month ago, and I'm like, what do I do about this? How much of it is actually to do with health, and how much of it is to do with poverty, opportunity, connection? You know, these are all the things. How much of that is political, and how much of that is up to us? I think that we have more power as caring people in a community. I think we have more power than we give ourselves credit. You know, I think mental health first aid would go a long way to relieving a strange system that's run by the government. I think it would save lives if people understood mental health first aid the same way they understand CPR, even if you didn't take the class, if you just saw it on TV or something, because art is important when we see ourselves in it. You know, I think this could go a long way. I think the answers may be simpler than all that. And we need to be there for each other. And it's okay that we don't know how.
I know you kind of have your own, I don't know whether you call it a foundation or what, but you have an organization that you kind of, where you go and you speak about these topics and stuff like that. How did you go from just, you know, caring about the topic to being that's a big part of your job now.
That's okay. So my partner, it's called It's Mental, which is a sort of a Newfoundlandia, Newfoundlandese kind of play on, I don't know. We love it, but that's mental, So it's called It's Mental. And it was, my co-founder is Donnie Cody and DC Design House. I would urge you to show him some love. He's in branding and marketing and publicity and all well-established favorite stuff of mine. but he's good and he knows what he's doing. And this is a real sweet spot for him too. So we got together. He said he enjoyed that I was tired of sitting around and waiting for the government to do stuff. And so we partnered up and I don't want to say we floundered, but it took us a while to find our real goals. We made a ton of t-shirts and then we bit off way more than we could chew by giving them away for free all over the place. We spent like a year and a half begging and borrowing and stealing friends to like stuff these things into envelopes and madly going over lists. Oh my gosh, what an administrative nightmare. But so that's free t-shirts for you. What we've done, I'm so glad you asked because we launched a new website like yesterday. Itsmental.ca. So what we are doing is we are, I'm so good at elevator pitches, right? We are sharing mental health first aid training as far and as wide as we can reach. And that is what we're doing because it's the sharing of knowledge. And it's that simple. And sharing knowledge gives you the confidence and it's easy to share knowledge if one person is confident enough in it. So you can get the mental health first aid training. You can also, we're hoping to be able to pay for people to become trainers so they can train the people to give the course, and then we'll have even more mental health first aid trainers to the point where like you're tired of taking the course. This is where I want to get. Oh no, not CPR again. That's where I'd like to get, with the first aid. It's a great course. It's not complex. It's encouraging that a lot of your common sense instincts about this stuff are not too off base, and you can learn a lot about it. However, getting the training to become a trainer comes with a pretty hefty price tag. So that's what we're helping with. So we're doing a pretty massive fundraiser, 12-hour yogathon. That's what you always wanted in your life. 12 hours of yoga. That'll help. It will help. It will. We're going to raise all kinds of money and we're going to put it directly to getting people trained to teach mental health first aid wherever we can find them.
Now, obviously, we need to go to the website and find out more about this, but can you just give me an idea what mental health first aid looks like? Like what's involved in that?
Well, it's exactly that. I mean, think of your first aid for your physical health. It's here's how to deal with the immediate problem and then get to a professional. That's what it is. It's first aid. It doesn't make you a psychologist. It doesn't mean you can diagnose all your friends. It means if someone is in a crisis, it will give you a toolkit of what to do in a crisis and then how to get to help, right? So it gets you from the metaphorical sitting alone in a room to an actual path to recovery. So if you're a friend watching a friend who is struggling, it'll help you. It'll help you understand how to deal with that, which is super awkward, and that's okay. But it's gonna help you. It's almost like listening lessons too.
That's so amazing because I think in so many cases sometimes we know that somebody might be having a hard time, or we know for sure that they've been in and out of a mental illness cycle or whatever. But we just have no idea what to do or even how to help, right? So, and often it's like, you don't want to bring it up, but you don't want to do nothing. And so this is giving me kind of ways to start that conversation and do those things.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Ways to start the conversation and how to take part in the conversation effectively. You can't just, mostly your empathetic instincts are going to be right. But you have to be so wary of triggers that there are really important steps in the first aid. And if anyone is that you can find available courses near you, I think it's Mental Health Commission of Canada, MHCC, is going to be where you would find the courses. I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure there's a page in there where you can plug in your postal code and see if there's any available courses. If it costs a lot of money, let me know and I'll get mad at someone for you because it should be readily available, right? That's the goal. We're going to get a lot of people trained, and then we're going to try and make it as accessible as possible.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that seems so common sense to me, that if we could deal with some of the problems that people are having before they get into real trouble, not only can we save lives, but we can, there's so much the crime and just the nastiness out there that can be attributed to people just going through stress or dealing with a mental illness and not knowing how. Addictions and all kinds of things often boil down to that. And it just seems like, why aren't we doing something about this? And I guess the ultimate answer is that you and I just have to start doing something about this.
Exactly. Yeah, we can. We're gonna, like I said, I do a lot of speaking, which is fancy talking, and so I do a lot of talking. But at some point, you have to walk the talk. You have to do the work. I've taken the course. I'm going to take a refresher course. It's you. There is something that we can do. There absolutely is. And one of the most frustrating things in this whole subject is when you sit around feeling like you can't help. And certainly it's not been made easy for anyone to just start being helpful, save some lives. However, it could be as simple as a listening skill. And listening is not necessarily all that of an intuitive thing. Look it up, be willing to learn, be willing to be wrong about something, and it's going to be okay. Again, I would look to queer culture, who are almost always first. Just so many applause. And the non-binary language. We've adopted it. Let's move on to the next thing. That's it. We can do that with mental health first aid. We can get it out there. We can adopt it, and we can go, okay, good. We all feel okay. Who's not okay? and then move on to the next thing. We can do that. We can do it.
So you must have some, I know you've, It's Mental has been around for a while, and you've been doing this for a while. Do you have success stories of people told you that the ideas that you're putting forth and stuff have already been put into practice and have already helped?
I hope so. Well, I hope so.
I guess they're not breaking down your door to thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Who's on top of this? Not me. So our website has been up for 24 hours. And we have a grand total of one trainer named Allison Butler, who's wonderful. And as soon as we get this fundraiser under our belt, which we hope will be a flagship fundraiser, the Yogathon, I think we can start. Somebody explained it to me as picture two lineups. One lineup is people who are ready to get trained, and the other lineup is people who are ready to throw money at the people who are going to get trained. And I'm like, yes, we can administrate the hell out of that. And now we're ready. So here we go.
So are we looking for people to get into those lines? How do we get people involved in this?
Yeah, you know what? Register for the Yogathon. One of the silver linings of the pandemic. Gosh, what a weird, I'm so uncomfortable every time I say that, but I try. One of the silver linings of the pandemic is that virtual events mean we're not restricted by geography. So this is going to be a virtual event on June 20th, marking the summer solstice. And as we get closer, if things are safe here in St. John's, we may have a live thing that people can come to, but there will still be a virtual event no matter what. You can sign up for a yogathon. You can register a team. It doesn't mean you have to do 12 hours of yoga by yourself. If you're like me, I do 5 minutes, and then I spend the rest of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say 12 minutes might be hard for me.
Yeah, I do 5 minutes. I spend the rest of the day feeling pretty superior to yesterday's version of me, like. So, you get your team, you register, be confident that your money is going to a really, really great place. And, because we're here for you.
I'm still trying to make sense of this. What does a virtual yogathon look like? Like we're all doing it kind of together over Zoom or what?
I don't know. I've never done a yogathon. I do 5 minutes of yoga a week. I don't know. Because many of our committee members in It's Mental are yoga instructors. And it's Teresa Butler. The yogathon is Teresa's brainchild, and God love her. She hit so many walls and so many roadblocks getting this off the ground, and then partnered with us. And then together we hit a lot of walls and a lot of roadblocks and a global pandemic and one thing and then the other thing. And so this is our first one, but we've been planning this thing for 3 years. 12 yoga teachers, 12 hours. It's great for beginners. It's great if you've been doing it all your life. Because there's also, let's gently roll into the link between our physical health and our mental, emotional well-being, right?
I guess we just go to itsmental.ca and find out more information about this. And
yes, because my elevator pitch, as we've established, is not great, but it's.
But are these things like you're in Newfoundland, and we can read about this on the internet? Is there some way that we can bring some of these ideas to our community as well, far away from there?
Sure. I'm not going to say no to an invitation like that. We're doing our thing here, but this scale of it is new for us as well. Because again, we're a registered nonprofit, dirty dirt. We have all our ducks in a row, but we're just a committee. We're not a governance board. We're a working committee of volunteers. Small potatoes, great big hearts. There's no reason that we can't be partnering with people across the country. This is the thing. When you just insist that something can be better and you're going to try and help make it better, people are going to help you do that. You're never going to have to do that alone. I am not alone in my advocacy work. I'm not alone with It's Mental. Lots of people are volunteering and they're like, what can I do? I'll do whatever. And it's because I just insisted. I'm like, we're going to change this system because it sucks. So let's do it. And people are like, yeah, I'm going to do that too. People will say yes if you build it, they will come, like all this sort of thing. I think that I'm trying not to compliment myself, but I want to say that I mean this so much. And I think that that's coming through. And I think that people have responded to that. And to that end, not to that end, but because of that, I'm not doing this alone. So many people are working so hard. And, if you want to help, someone could use your help. That's it.
It's amazing work, and again, I told you before, it's a real inspiration. I'm the guy who has an understanding of this, and I want to help, and sometimes I just don't know what to do, and so this has all been really helpful.
The way that you can help is kind of a drag. Like when people were calling to volunteer, and we were like, we're in over our head with these friggin' t-shirts. Can you please come help and drive Amelia to the post office with these 200 envelopes? And you're like, oh, that's kind of, it's not really what I want to do. It's like, if you want to help your friend run their restaurant, you want to be the head chef. You want to be Gordon Ramsay. You don't want to be the guy sweeping out the bathrooms, but they might just need help sweeping out the bathrooms. This is it. I was a theater nerd in high school, and my theater teacher used to say there that every job is very important. If your job is to make toast, it is the most important toast in the world, and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. if we had not gotten those t-shirts out, we could have lost all credibility. And maybe somebody didn't get their t-shirt to this day, and I have lost all credibility with that person. And you know what? I'm sorry, but it's time to move on and get your mental health first aid training.
Is a lot of this stuff, do you feel like a lot of this stuff is taking on a new importance for you now that you're a parent? I know that when I had a son rather late in life, and I never really realized how friggin' selfish and idiotic I was until now all of a sudden I have to care about somebody else more than me sometimes. Do you feel like being a parent now makes this more important to you to change things for the better?
I think so. I mean, oh my gosh. She's 3. She's only 3 and only just 3. I think about, I don't want these systems to be exactly the same in 15 years for her. I don't want to have to tell her that I worked for 25 years for something that didn't happen. You know, that's it. I'm not afraid of her falling or stumbling or getting hurt or anything like that. That's just life. But I don't want all this to be for nothing. Ugh. Over to you, Uncle Trudeau. I call him Uncle Justin, Uncle JT, Prime Minister Moneybags. You know? In a way, I know I'm like, politics, schmolitics a little bit, and we shouldn't be waiting for the government to legislate our wellness and all this sort of crap. But there are some, like I said, boring, but cogs. There are some cogs that are really important. There's no national suicide prevention plan. Provinces are starting to jump on board with that. I checked up with our own province, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. I was like, do we have a suicide prevention plan? And the answer was no, but it's being worked on. And it's been being worked on for about 2 years. So these are the kinds of things that are, I call it politicking. Okay, they're just politicking about it. There's very little political will for this stuff because it's not money, you know. So a certain amount of politicking does have to happen, because if Uncle JT does not somehow tell me that my life is important, then I'm not going to believe him when he says, you owe me this much in taxes. You know, like I'm trying to take part, and it's okay to need to be told that I matter. So in a way, politicking is going to play a part, but I don't think we need to sit around waiting for it, because they're going to take a long time. I will tell you that because it's a new position for me. It's only been 5 or 6 months. I've been sitting on the board at CASP, C-A-S-P, which is the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention. So it is not a terribly well-known organization, but it is national. And part of the reason I'm there is to help. They didn't call me because they needed my help. I was like, please, can I sit on your board? And they were like, yeah, okay, I guess so. But, you know, we all know who CMHA is, Canada Mental Health Association. And CASP, to me, is equally important to that. And certainly CASP and CMHA are partners in a great many ways. And I hope that CASP becomes more well-known in the general public, in the living rooms. I used to say the living rooms of New Brunswick, because to me that was the most unfamiliar place in Canada. I don't know why. I was like, the living rooms of New Brunswick, where everybody watches the evening news. You know, check in on CASP and our great many partners in suicide prevention and life promotion.
Well, what does a suicide prevention organization or policy even do? Like, if I knew how to prevent it, I would just go do that. Like what's in the policy, or what? That's
kind of it, right? It's kind of it. We're kind of going, how do we prevent this from happening? Oh my goodness. You know, and apologies for making light, but it's cultural for me. I got to laugh it through. There are, woof. So, I mean, it's like I said, when I first got involved in advocacy in general, it was because it was a realization that mental illness is fatal. And so for CASP, I think that also rings true for CASP. And oh my gosh, I'm new to it. It's a new role for me. Forgive me. It's a lot to do with legislation, with partnering with the government, partnering with Indigenous communities, feather carriers, Northern communities, Students on Ice, North in Focus. These are incredible, incredible organizations who are doing such great work. Suicide prevention is different from mental health care in the sense that just consider all of the things that go into your mental wellness and consider all of the things that have kept you alive. And it is not because you went to the dentist, and it is not because you had a GP or not. It is community. It is economy. It's, I want to say, poverty, opportunity, connection, all these things. CASP takes all these things into account, and we're trying to figure out how we can prevent this from happening. That's the thing. There's also a concept that is new to me, which is called postvention. So we understand prevention of things. In postvention, we're talking about connecting families who have suffered losses to suicide. Because, like I said, it's about connection. It's one of my. I'm too excited. I don't know what to say. There's a thing about Pete Seeger and participation will save the human race. Right now, CASP is focused on connection, a little on legislation, a little bit talking about MAID and the passing of Bill C-7. A lot of anti-poverty talk. So there's a lot that's going to go into actually preventing a suicide, promoting a life. There's a lot to that. There's things to consider. I mean, they're trying to cure cancer, but you could cure cancer for men and not necessarily for women. It's these sorts of things. Not that curing cancer is simple, obviously, and preventing suicide is neither simpler nor more complex than that. I believe there are a great many socioeconomical factors that go into suicide, and I believe that there's a place for people like me to have a seat at that table.
On the shelf and nobody asks for my opinion because you don't want to hear it. I swear I'm only human, wishing I could disappear. And you must think it's an illusion that I like to live in fear of a probable solution. Why the devil put me here.
Friends, please take some time to educate yourself and find out how you can help in the important work that Amelia is so actively involved in. You can find out more about the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention at suicideprevention.ca. To get involved in the yogathon that we talked about or help with Amelia's work, visit itsmental.ca. Amelia and I would both love it if you'd purchase some of her wonderful music. She pointed out that it's mighty expensive raising a 3-year-old as a single parent who volunteers all over the place and is so involved in many important organizations. Check out ameliacurran.com for links to buy her music, or you can go to Bandcamp. That would really help directly support her. Of course, links and information on the music used in this show can be found at flywithyourshadow.com. You can find a lot of great music by John Bottomley on iTunes. I also host a music show where I play a lot of music that I know you'd love, and you can hear episodes and find out more at tellthebandtogohome.com. As always, I'd really appreciate it if you'd take a moment to tell someone about this show to help spread the word. Your direct recommendation would really help to get the message out. You can get in touch with me with any feedback or questions at flywithyourshadow@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment at flywithyourshadow.com, or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you'll join me next time on Fly With Your Shadow.
I am a lover of the way